I feel like 7 years is enough of a timeline to go out there and properly digest the rivalry, the story, and what has happened so far between these two players, especially when you consider just how well they've been performing in 2022-2023. It makes this conversation one that I am so happy to be bringing you. Today we're going back to 2015 and talking about probably the best entry draft the NHL had seen in a very long time. And when you take a look at the drafts after that, 2015 really does look like the one that stands out amongst the crop, but I guess giving it another decade or two might not be such a bad idea, but at the moment, 2015 seems to be one of the best entry drafts we have had in a very long time. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this one today is because back when I was sort of in the midst of my hockey fandom, I was 15 years old, back in 2015, I was paying attention to the draft. It was my grade 9 year, 2014-15 was, so I was just kind of hooked on the hockey. I followed the stories, etc., etc. I remember this draft primarily as the first one that I actually paid attention to the whole way through. So all the stories, the prospects, it kind of resonates very deeply in my heart. And when you talk about the guys taken number 1 and number 2, this was pretty much the rivalry that topped all rivalries. When it came to the Byfields or the Lafrenières, the Nikos versus the Nolans, the Matthewses versus the Laines, and even the Slafkovskys versus Wrights, this McDavid Eichel thing at number 1 and number 2 was one of the most conversational topics that you could bring up. This was because back in 2014-15, Connor McDavid was supposed to be the next best thing. Better than Crosby is what they labeled him as far back as 2013. And for Jack Eichel, he was seen as this consolation prize to top all consolation prizes. Had Eichel been eligible in 2014, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, all of these, he probably would have been first overall. It's just, he happened to be going up against McDavid. This is why everybody kind of knew that McDavid was going to go first overall. There wasn't really any contention there, but there were some people highlighting the idea that, hey, Jack Eichel is a guy that had a better physical than Connor McDavid. You could see that the guy has been an underdog in this whole thing because he's been touted as number 2 the entire time. He's got a really hard-willed determination and a will to win. This is why when the Buffalo Sabres interviewed Jack Eichel, I'm pretty sure it was something along the lines of, hey, what are you going to do to make us feel like we won ourselves the lottery even though we didn't win number 1? And Eichel came in with all the point production in the world in the NCAA and a heck of a lot of confidence to back up his play. This is why when Connor McDavid made his debut in the NHL and he had himself that 48-point in 45-game campaign, a lot of people were kind of saying, okay, he's here and he's actually producing really well. It's just unfortunate that Brandon Manning took the guy out, which is why he had his rookie season cut short and he didn't win the Calder. Meanwhile, for Jack Eichel, the guy got more points, yes, but he played the full year. Now, sure, he had 56 points in 81 games. That's definitely not a bad rookie season in the slightest, but the years after, Connor McDavid decided to really just take over the league by scoring 100 points 3 years in a row, winning multiple Art Rosses. He had the 105-point campaign in 56 games in 2020-2021. And Jack Eichel never really accomplished that same feat. Now, Eichel had multiple 50-point years, following that up by a 64-point year in 67 games, and then a point-per-game season in 2018-19, the very first season where he had the captaincy for Buffalo. But for Jack Eichel, the problem was more so with the environment and the way the environment treated him. No, I'm not talking about the fans, I'm talking about the organization. You see, the Buffalo Sabres were a bad team this entire time, and Jack Eichel was a really competitive dude. He said multiple times that he wants to win every game, he wants to make the Stanley Cup Playoffs, he wants to win the Cup, and it's frustrating for him, as a super competitive guy, to not get those opportunities. You could see that there was some sort of frustration boiling up over there. Meanwhile, I know Connor McDavid didn't have the same level of success in the postseason as Buffalo did. They made the dance a few times, but it wasn't until 2022 where they really got too far. Connor McDavid was lighting the world on fire, and he was living up to all expectations and breaking, exceeding right past them at the same time. This is when we saw ourselves the Jack Eichel trade controversy after he had the thing with his neck. He only played 21 games in 2020-2021 before eventually getting traded over to Vegas. And now, if you take a look at what Jack Eichel is for this squad, he is the #1 point producer on the team. With 19 points in 15 games played, 9 goals, 10 assists, Jack Eichel has been up there in points. He's on pace for his first 100-point season, that in which he's never really gotten too close at producing, and he's on pace for 49 goals as well. He had 36 goals back in 2019-20, which was really good for him, but of course, the season after he suffered the injury that kind of sidelined him for an extended amount of time. And all I gotta say is that for Jack Eichel, this is a guy that's kind of been waiting slowly, patiently in the shadows for that opportunity to really strike and showcase to the world that he can be that guy that the Buffalo Sabres drafted to be second overall in 2015. He is now on a legitimately successful team. They're one of the first teams in the NHL when it comes to points. He's scoring the lights out. He scored a hat trick against his old Buffalo Sabres squad and waved to the crowd goodbye as the boos rained down in the arena. And for Connor McDavid, the guy taken above Jack Eichel, Connor McDavid is pretty much doing Connor McDavid things. The guy has 15 goals in 15 games and 16 assists. He's at 31 points. He's on pace for an 82-goal season and 87 assists for 169 total points. Now, the Oilers, they play later today. They actually have an early game. It's a really early game, 1 p.m. PST. So we'll see if Connor McDavid is able to uphold that insane 2-point-per-game metric that he has so far. But honestly, when it comes to what this rivalry back in 2015 promised, I'm not going to go out there and say that we've been disappointed too much. Sure, for Jack Eichel, you could say that the guy had a few years where you probably could have expected a few more points, maybe a few more goals here and there, but I really do feel like circumstances play a part of it. It's a team around him that wasn't able to get the horse straddled up to the cart. It's an environment that didn't allow him to get the surgery that he wanted, thus causing him to miss out on such an extended amount of time. That was like almost a year's worth of development lost because the guy wasn't able to get the surgery that he wanted. Now he's back, and he's scoring at a 100-point pace. Plus, the way that Eichel is able to get his production. He is so cool, calm, and collected when he creates offense. He gallops around the offensive zone so casually, just throws it out in front, passes to the slot, and then he's able to score at will as well. He's very talented. If you told me back in 2015, hey, Jack Eichel, he would take a while to get there, but by the time he's 26 years old, he will be a 100-point caliber player, I would have been like, yeah, okay, that's kind of what you wanted, what you expected out of Eichel in this 2015 NHL draft. Meanwhile, for Connor McDavid, I mean, it's tough to really go out there and put into words just how gnarly he has been. He had 2 points a game last season in the postseason after putting up a 123-point campaign. He casually won the Art Ross and was just kind of there in the voting process for all the awards, only for Matthews to be given it all because, yeah, he scored 60 goals. I mean, McDavid's on pace for 82 goals, so we'll see what he's able to accomplish there. But if you told me back in 2015, hey, it would take a season of Connor McDavid getting injured and not winning the Calder for him to just awaken and be the 100-point guy that we know that he's capable of being, I would have been like, yeah, okay. I mean, after, 7 years past the draft, Connor McDavid's going to have 700 points in 502 NHL games? Yeah, that makes a lot of freaking sense, man. Based off of how people were hyping up these two guys in 2015, this sort of progression seems very, very fulfilling of those expectations. So, talk in the comments your thoughts about McDavid versus Eichel 7 years later, what you think about the rivalry and how things were conversed about back then. I get it, 2015 was a crazy good draft. You had a lot of great talents taken after these players. Mitch Marner is another player that could very well get 100 points on a season. Mikko Rantanen is a fantastic hockey player, so is Timo Meier, Zach Werenski, Matthew Barzal, Kyle Connor. These are some very good names, but Eichel and McDavid were the number 1 and number 2 guys, and it was like that for a reason. 2015 was headlined with some crazy good names, but there were only 2 that really stood out as guaranteed picks in their positions. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.